The 2026 NFL Combine starts this week. I just wanted to jump on and talk to you guys about some of the players that Bills fans can keep an eye on, including my dark horse pick for Buffalo at 26. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Bud Talks Bills. Today, we're going to be going over some of the things to look for at the Combine this week. Media sessions start tomorrow, February 25th. The D-line and linebackers and kickers will be meeting with the media tomorrow. All the on-field drills will be the next day for each position group. Thursday, the tight ends, corners, and safeties will meet with the media. Friday is the quarterbacks, wide receivers, running backs, and then the O-line on Saturday. And like I said, each position group will do their on-field drills the next day. Obviously, a lot of talk about who Buffalo should be looking at. Early in the draft, especially. Do you invest in the wide receiver room again? I know the wide receiver train has been picking up speed, especially the last couple of years. With Joe Brady taking over, obviously we can expect that there will be some additions to that room. However, changing defensive schemes, losing a lot of players, the defense will need some heavy investments as well in this draft. Just wanted to start by going over some of the wide receivers that I personally am going to be keeping an eye on this week. Obviously, you have, the top three guys. I don't think that we're going to really have a chance with them. Jordan Tyson, Mekhi Lemon, and Carnell Tate. Maybe Tyson falls, Lemon as well. Carnell Tate, I don't think we're going to have a realistic chance for at all. And even if we did, I would not want to give up the draft capital to move up in a year like this for one player. Another guy that could be there at 26 that has gotten a lot of chatter from Bills fans and national media is Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M. He's somebody that I really want to keep an eye on this week. Quick uncover guy, exceptional underneath, yards after catch, has some return ability. Some questions on top end speed. 40 time will be real interesting to keep an eye on. And another point to that is the Bills release these embedded series the last couple of years. We always hear Brandon Beane. It's been a running joke. First, I believe the first player was Gabe Davis, and then Keon, and he always makes these comments about, oh, I hope that 40 time is a little slower. We might be able to let him fall a little bit. It will be interesting to see if there is a shift in draft philosophy with that. I really think that just getting a true separator with elite speed and not trying to let these guys fall all because, he ran a 4.4, 4.55, 40. Well, we might be able to get him a little later. I think going and getting some of these elite separator speed, quick and fast guys is something that this offense really needs. Casey Concepcion is somebody I'm kind of interested in. Denzel Boston, you look at the size, 6'4", 210, great hands, can play downfield, can play underneath. It also has some return ability. Is the bigger bodied receiver somebody that, could get labeled as a contested catch guy? Is that something that's, scaring Bills fans? I know my first thought on him, instant reaction is don't want a bigger contested catch guy. I think he has more to offer than just the contested catch ability. I think that he's somebody that very much is in play at 26. And then some other guys that have just been kind of tossed around, in that pick. I saw a mock draft with Malachi Fields from Notre Dame. Not sure I really want to, draft a player, with his skill set in the first round. knowing what we already have in the receiver room, what we might, need to add to that room as well. Chris Bell coming off an injury from Louisville, not too high on him just as a fit. And then some of the middle round guys, depending on how it goes this week with testing, you maybe second, most likely third round kind of guy, is Skylar Bell from UConn. I'm really high on him, and Ted Hurst obviously uh, played well at the Senior Bowl, showed that step up from playing a Georgia State schedule. That level of competition is going to be a big question, is if he can play to that level of competition. Those are the guys that I personally, have. I'm not a film expert. I don't break it down, but just seeing what I see, those are the guys that I'm really interested in looking at this week, and hope that we can add one of them. Um, a lot of mock drafts I've seen, Elijah Surratt from Indiana going. Heard some fans talking about Omar Cooper Jr. from Indiana. Maybe, we'll see their testing this week. Somebody like Surratt, I really want to get away from the contested catch type receiver, and go back to a true separator. And if you can find a separator that'll challenge the defense, at all three levels, separate quick off the line, get off press, can win, mid-level routes, as well as stretch the defense vertically. I think those are the guys that we really need to be looking at. And the guys that I previously mentioned, I think that those are the targets, that we should be keeping an eye on this week. I kind of teased a pick for 26. For me personally, I've started kind of, doing some research on him, watching some film. Not a wide receiver, but Dylan Thieneman from Oregon, the safety. Super, super high on him, and with a new defensive scheme, with Jim Leonhard coming in, maybe playing some more one high safety, Shells hopefully moving Cole Bishop back down, to where he might excel a little more closer to the line of scrimmage. Not that Bishop played, bad at all this year. I think he took, bigger steps than I know I expected after that first year, even this past year. I think that Cole Bishop is going to flourish in that role, kind of a box safety down near the line of scrimmage, robber role. To pair him with a safety like Dylan Thieneman, I think would be great for this defense. And I've seen a couple comps to Javon Holland, just an aggressive, center field type rangy player. From what I saw on him, and like I said, not a film expert, but just from what I see from him, is somebody that I really want to pair on the back end with Cole Bishop in this defense. Another safety, that I'm very high on, Bud Clark from TCU. He's got a pretty sweet name. But outside of that, just another rangy, deep center fielder type safety. 15 interceptions in his career at TCU. Really kind of plays the ball like a receiver, and that's something that I'm looking forward, to adding to this defense, and seeing what Jim Leonhard and this new scheme, what he can work with. Obviously, there's a lot of needs on the defensive line. There's a lot of defensive of linemen, to look at this year. Just going down through the list here of guys that are, somewhat realistic. Past the first round, you got guys like Dante Corleone from Cincinnati could be, a good piece in the middle, big run stuffer, just big body. Dominique Orange from Ohio State, kind of the same type of role there. But if we're looking for that impact pass rusher, that Buffalo's really been lacking for a while. I kind of, they've Beans had some swings. He went out and gave Von Miller a lot of money, and we tried the 1 year thing with Bosa last year. Um, we've invested a lot of draft capital in the defensive line as well, and just really kind of failed to find that impact one-on-one, gonna make a play type a pass rusher. I think there's some guys in this draft, starting with R. Mason Thomas from Oklahoma. I think that a realistic pick for that 26 range. He's somebody that really has shown off the edge, that he can get to the passer, to the quarterback, and LT Overton from Alabama, maybe a more of a middle round guy. Derek Moore from Michigan. I think that there's a lot of guys to keep an eye on at the combine, who flashes, who might rise up the board, who might fall a little bit based on measurables, height, weight, testing. Um, Really kind of an exciting week. But I think that there's some excitement, with Bills fans. Uh, the combine is going to be different this year. The draft is going to be different. This is the first time in a decade, really, that we've been going there. We're going to be going there without Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane running the show. And how much is the draft process going to change with Brady at the helm? Is there going to be, a different archetype that we look for at each position? Is there going to be a different way of trying to decide and decipher who would be a good fit? There's reports that the Jacksonville Jaguars, Liam Cohen, and their general manager, name slips my mind right now, but they're not going to the combine. They don't want to draft based on feel, if you will. Something that we have done. I mean, a lot of press was given to the fact that Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane saw Kaiir Elam's notebook in a meeting, and they fell in love with it, and in the person. And Keon Coleman, a lot was made about that draft interview at the combine, and how they felt about him as a person. There has been a little bit of a draft rut, and I'll use Joe Marino's term for that. Joe Marino did a podcast this past week about the draft rut that Brandon Beane has been in compared to other GMs across the league, especially in our division, and just based, comparing to some of his earlier drafts. It'll be interesting to see if there is a little bit of a change in philosophy in how they interview these players, the approach that they take in trying to decide who is the right guy to take and when. There's going to be changes. I think that that's kind of safe to assume with a coaching, change. But the guy leading it is the same, and he really has the pressure on him right now. And I'm referring to Brandon Beane. I discussed in the first episode, there's a lot of pressure on Brandon Beane. One, with the coaching change and getting the promotion, and a lot of people thought that maybe the finger should have been pointed at him. He led the coaching search and picked Brady after interviewing nine guys, and it was a guy that was in the building from the coaching staff that kind of just got blamed for the failures the last couple of years. I think that there's a lot of pressure on him from that side, from the cap situation, from having the dead money and trying to push this out and missing on some of these free agents. The Joey Bosa experiment wasn't a total loss, but I don't think that anyone can say that they were truly happy with how that contract played out. And Ogunjobi last year was just a straight disappointment. Curtis Samuel, disappointment on many levels. Josh Palmer, I think, might still be too easy, but he's had some misses which in free agency that has led to some contracts with void years and dead money. And one of the ways, probably the biggest way to get out of that situation and help the cap and really brighten the future here, for this window, that we're talking about with Joe Brady and probably the last, 3, 4, 5 years of prime Josh Allen, that window just wide open. Hey, you have a top 1A quarterback. The one of the best ways to do that is to just nail drafts and just hit on these draft picks at every level and help the cap and help the team and help the depth. And I'm really interested to see if there's a difference in philosophy here at the combine this week, going into the draft in April. That could, you know, really help a roster that needs, maybe not the total rebuild that is assumed. I think there's still a lot of really good pieces on this team, offense and defensively, even with a defensive shift in scheme. Um, but really excited to see what happens this week. There's a lot of players, to keep an eye on. Somebody that I'm really high on. I know it's not offense. A lot of people want the wide receiver train. I'm on it too. Won't be disappointed if it is a receiver. Um, but Dylan Thieneman, that safety from Oregon, just really high on him. Want to pair, Cole Bishop with the type of safety that Bills fans are kind of used to. You know, it's easy to point at, some failures with the defense, the last couple of years, but I think that Bills fans got really used to having just two safeties, uh, granted in a different scheme. Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer were cornerstones of this defense for 5, 6 years. Interchangeable pieces, could drop down to the box, play one high. Obviously, Micah Hyde was a little better deeper. Poyer's a little better in the box, but they were interchangeable. And I think that having a safety tandem of Dylan Thieneman with Cole Bishop in this kind of, one high shell, mostly safe, look on defense is extremely exciting to me. Does he test past 26 and all of a sudden now he's going to be going in the teens? We don't know, but that's what's exciting about this week. And I think that another step, with the combine being this week is truly getting to that next level of the off season and getting past how the season ended. And our season ended in heartbreaking fashion, like it usually does, for Bills fans, and in the process of trying, to digest that, we got thrown another curveball with the coaching change that we went over, and I think that this combine being this week and kind of getting to that next step is a good time for Bills fans to really start just getting excited about this upcoming season and the changes, that will take place. Obviously, we know on the defense, but some of the personnel changes that we could see in the wide receiver room, different pieces on offense. I think that it's a really, really exciting time in the off season, and I can't wait to see some of those players perform and test, and maybe some of them test out of our range. Some of them, those mid-round guys, the second, third round guys, maybe they test into the first round. It's going to be fun to see, and I will be checking back in after the combine. We will kind of go over some of the players that I highlighted, maybe some players that weren't on the radar that now are on the radar. Some of the guys that might have fallen off the radar. So we will be looking to do that episode at the end of the week. Again, just wanted to check in and do a quick little combine episode. Get some of the guys that I'm excited to watch this week, and really kind of start to zero in on some guys for the early rounds, the first, second, third round picks. It was fun talking to you guys again. If anyone wants to interact, My Twitter account is at Bud Talks Bills. Um, Always down to talk some Buffalo Bills football. Exciting time of the year, and really looking forward to uh, getting back together with you guys after the combine and going over some of the results. So I'll leave it with that. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for listening, and go Bills.